Hello my friends, it's Tim Flynn here. I want to do a very special magical effect for you on St. Patrick's Day. You see, people often ask me how the Flynn family came to be in America, and I like to tell them the true story of my great-great-grandfather, Michael Patrick Flynn. You see, he would use these 4 cards, and he would travel around Ireland and he would take people's money. He was kind of a gypsy, a vagabond, if you will. He would show them the cards one at a time. 1 black card, 2 black cards, a red card, and a black card. The Red King. The idea was to follow the red card, the odd card, if you will. He'd place one of the 9s over here in his pocket, and he would say, "Hey diddle diddle, Red King in the middle." The idea is to follow the odd card if you can. He'd say, "Watch closely. I'll place the king in the middle." He'd ask them if they'd like to place a wager. Now some would and some wouldn't. And to entice the others, he would show them the top card was one of the black cards. He'd place it on the table and he'd show them the bottom card was also one of the black 9s. He'd place that on the table and he'd say, "Would you like to bet?" Some of the others would now join in and say, "It's got to be that one." They'd put some money down and he'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's one of the black cards as well." And he would take their money and slide it over to his side of the table and show them that the king was actually over here in his pocket the whole time. He'd say, "I'll give you another chance." He'd take the king and very fairly and squarely place it on the bottom of the pile. He'd give them another quick flash and he'd say, "Would you like to place a bet on where the king is?" Now some would and some wouldn't. And he'd just wave his hand over the cards and show them the king has now risen to the top of the pack. He'd slide their money over to his side of the table and he'd say, "Look, I'll give you another chance. Very fairly and squarely I place it on the bottom." Give him a quick flash. "Would you like to place a wager on where that king is?" Now some would and some wouldn't. They'd bet it was on the bottom. He'd just wave his hand over the cards, and of course naturally it would come right back to the top as he slid their money over to the side of the table. Now you'd think they'd start to get it, but he would have some more fun. He'd say, "Look, I'll take the king, I'll place it over here in my pocket." And they'd yell, "Hey, hey, you can't see the card." He'd say, "Okay, I'll put it right here. In fact, I'll show you these 3 cards so you have nothing to complain about. Look, there's 1, 2, 3 black cards, and the Red King is over here in the pocket. Would you like to bet on where the king is now?" Of course, they could see the card and they'd be happy to. And he'd say, "Wait, wait, wait, that's not fair to me." And he'd just rub the card 1, 2, 3 times and place it very fairly and squarely on the bottom of the pile. He would ask them, "Would you like to bet on where the king is?" They couldn't help themselves and they'd all bet that it was on the bottom. He'd wave his hand over the card and say, "Look, it's actually back on top," as he slid their money over to his side of the table. Now about this time he realized that he had a large pile of their money. And to entice them for that last little bit, that mere pittance, he would say, "I'll bet everything I have against what you have left. I'll take the king, I'll place it in my pocket. And would you like to bet on where the king is?" Of course they saw this large pile of money which was theirs and they wanted it back, and they would bet their mere pittance against his, which was a card in his pocket. He'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's one of the 9s. And he would take their money and slide it to his side of the table. But that's not why he was ran out of Ireland. You see, what he would do is he would rub their noses in his winnings. He would say, "Look, had you bet on any one of these cards, perhaps the center card, you would have had a winner. That's one of the kings. Or maybe if you'd have bet on this one, you also would have had a winner. That as well is a king. And perhaps had you bet on this card over here, you would have had a winner as well, because that also is a king." And that's how my family came to be in America, because they ran my great-great-grandfather, Michael Patrick Flynn, out of Ireland. Thank you very much.